is probably one of the largest data shifts in memory, if not the largest.
We're at this inflection point where somebody kind of had to pull the trigger so that we would stop using old technology and move to a hopefully better universe.
I see this as the end of a precision era in favor of one that's using predictive technology with the use of AI and privacy-preserving tech.
It doesn't necessarily create new walled gardens per se, it just takes the walls that already exist within the sort of bigger players and makes them even taller.
Google has begun the process of eliminating third-party cookies from Chrome, a deprecation that it expects to complete by the end of 2024. Since Chrome has a 65% share of the global browser marketplace, this is a substantial change for the advertising industry to adapt to. Third-party cookies have for many years played a central role in the targeting, measurement, and attribution of online advertising. Moving to an alternative currency is a philosophical, economical, and technical challenge. To help you on your cookieless journey, this video series will unpack why cookies are being deprecated, the alternatives on offer, and the potential knock-on effects to consider. You'll hear how brands, agencies, tech platforms, and publishers are approaching this complex issue, so you can compare approaches and see where priorities lie. I hope it helps.
A cookie is a small piece of data or code that is stored on a web browser when a user visits a website. Sometimes it's placed there by the website owner so they can customize your experience, and other times it's placed there by a company or a party other than the owner of the site that you're visiting, hence the name third-party cookies. So for years, third-party cookies have helped businesses of all sizes serve relevant ads to their customers, and it's also helped website owners earn ad revenue for the content that they create. Cookies also have other uses outside of advertising that help websites function smoothly for consumers, like payment services, embedded video players, and more. Third-party cookies also come with privacy compromises, and so people today are concerned about how their data is collected, used online, and in particular, how it's shared with other parties. And in a lot of ways, third-party cookies have outlived their intended use.
It's not just because Chrome has decided this. There's lots of data regulation, which is probably the effect of governments and consumer groups taking notice of just how awful the digital ecosystem has treated people's privacy in the past.
Third-party cookies have changed the industry in multiple ways in terms of getting brands, platforms, advertisers to think about things in sort of basic demographic constructs to more nuanced marketing constructs. But the biggest challenge always has been how the data was collected. Third-party cookies primarily were collected without consent, and none of us knew how the data was getting collected. So there has always been this tension, and I think this is a great move for the industry in general, because I think it puts the onus on brands to create meaningful relationships, meaningful value exchange, where consumers opt into engagements with those brands, share their data willingly.
We've built this whole elaborate multi-billion-dollar industry on the back of something that was never really meant as a vehicle for advertising. When third-party cookies were invented back in the day with early browsers, their intended use was quite primitive. By evolving this incredibly complex ecosystem, we've raised and created some privacy nightmares that both regulators and end users are becoming increasingly aware of. We're at this inflection point where somebody kind of had to pull the trigger so that we would stop using old technology and move to a hopefully better universe.
I think it's probably fair to say that this is largely being driven by legislation in response to an industry that probably played a little too fast and loose with consumer data. Government felt that it was time to step in and protect consumer privacy.
The third-party cookie has been incredibly good at enabling a variety of digital use cases over the last 20 years. And we as marketers have become incredibly dependent on it. But the capability that I've just described has definitely come at a cost as well. Third-party cookies allow you to gain a really deep understanding of users as they navigate across sites, and exposes a level of personal information that we deem to be inappropriate.
There's two reasons that the third-party cookie is being deprecated, one of which is an earnest desire to become more privacy compliant and more aligned with what consumers expect. The other, and the bigger reason, is for commercial purposes. It doesn't necessarily create new walled gardens per se, it just takes the walls that already exist within the sort of bigger players and makes them even taller, makes them even harder for other parties to come in and sort of disturb that revenue stream for those that are involved, for sure.
That's the question of the year. It's been mostly out of Google's own interest that they delayed, as well as their initial proposed solution wasn't secure enough. It wasn't privacy safe enough. If anyone remembers Flock, it could kind of be reverse engineered to identify individuals. Google, I think, should not be the one really to come up with the solutions. That's why we have a whole cottage industry that has developed around ID resolution. The biggest reason that it's been slow, the marketing budgets. We need the marketers to tell the agencies, we need goalposts to be putting X percentage of our ad spend towards alternatives. And that should have been happening all year, so that going into 2024, we're almost at 100% of their budgets are now being traded through these solutions.
It's a massive shift in how the industry has operated. There have been business models, operating models built around it. And when a massive change like this happens, it takes time. You want to make sure that whatever you're shifting to is sustainable.
It's really hard to keep flying a plane while you're rebuilding its proverbial engines and making sure it has enough fuel and that you're generally not falling out of the air. It would be wonderful if every company had enough resources to be so forward-thinking and test solutions that will serve them next year, in 3 years, in 5 years, but that's just not the reality of where the industry is today. So it has been very, very difficult, both for publishers, for brands, and for technology providers to make this a commercial priority. And it's always been the case with this kind of foundational work. It's something that we all understand and agree is necessary, but it is very, very hard to find room for it in a P&L statement and, to go to your CFO and ask for investment.
Maybe some general complacency in the market to the point of maybe some players having waited longer than they should have, probably, to find an alternative. Now that we're seeing the emergence of other technologies that enable a better contextual understanding and semantic understanding of the context and are better able to match a brand's message with the context in which it appears, we'll probably see an easier shift away from third-party based technologies.
It's probably one of the largest data shifts in memory, if not the largest. Hence, a little bit of chaos and what feels like disorganization is a natural fallout from something that's this large and this complicated.
So advertising has been the lifeblood of the internet for over 25 years, supporting a vibrant ecosystem of content creators and advertisers. Making sure that this stays true for the next 25 years is critically important to Google. And so the Privacy Sandbox is being developed by Chrome collaboratively with the industry and with regulatory bodies and key opinion formers to get it right for consumers, for publishers, and for advertisers.
And whoever's model ends up being chosen, even the open source ones, automatically crowns new dominant players potentially. So there's been a lot of resistance, I think, on that front. Also, I think every time that the deadline has approached, there's been a lot of chaos expressed back to Google specifically from big time marketers, saying that they're not ready to be able to do it. And that the new solution doesn't necessarily make them comfortable enough to keep their current investment in the marketplace. And so that keeps getting kicked down the road. Even this one, I'll believe it when I see it. just that this topic and how it functions and all the different permutations of how it's going to affect marketing into the future is so complicated and so nerdy that it makes it really hard for CMO to differentiate between the solutions, because they all kind of sound the same. They all sort of sound like they're achieving the same outcome, but functionally under the hood, they are vastly different.